Today's webinar is hosted by Austin Gibbs, a program of the Austin Chamber that recognizes businesses for excellence in giving back, and it fosters connections among philanthropic businesses, and that's what we're doing here today. Today's stories are an example of how Central Texas companies are giving back during this extraordinary time. We will hear best practices and get ideas on how we can all get more involved, from virtual volunteering to employee engagement. And on behalf of the Chamber, I'd like to thank our sponsors for supporting Chamber programming just like this. It wouldn't be possible without these companies that you see here on your screen: Amazon, Ascension Seton, Home Depot, PIMCO, and Wells Fargo. And thanks to the Chamber's foundation partners that you also see on your screen there: AT&T, Downtown Austin Alliance, Samsung, Austin Semiconductor, St. David's Healthcare, and Texas Mutual Insurance Company, corporate partners, and Austin Gives sustaining partners. This business workshop is designed to provide tips and insights, and it's an opportunity for the audience to ask this panel anything. We've got a great panel today. Someone else from the Chamber was supposed to open this, and she's having some audio challenges. So I jumped in and took it over. So I'll just introduce myself. My name's Kristen Markham. I'm the president of an Austin-based communications firm, Elizabeth Christian Public Relations. We're a local communications firm with a diverse roster of clients, some of whom you've just seen here today, from St. David's Healthcare to Texas Mutual. We led the campaign to bring Major League Soccer to Austin, so you're welcome for that. And I have the pleasure of serving on a number of nonprofit boards here in Austin, so this is a space that I'm personally passionate about. And I'm happy to be here today because number one, it's Friday. We made it through another week. And number two, I think we can all use a little inspiration and good news right now. So with that, I would love to introduce someone who is a personal role model to me and to many in this community, Bobby Jenkins. Bobby is the owner of ABC Home and Commercial Services. They do so much for so many across this entire state, but he's also the chair of the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority. He's a past chair of the Chamber. He's the co-founder and a board member of Recognize Good. And very important for today's program, he is a past chair and current board member of Austin Gives. He's a proud Aggie, and I'm particularly thankful to you, Bobby, for making time today because I know you have a big weekend. So will you kick us off, Bobby, with a little bit about Austin Gives?
I sure will, Kristen, and thank you very much for that. You know, as everybody knows out there, we are in absolutely unprecedented times that none of us have ever seen before and have ever dealt with. And it's amazing to me to be able to see what people are doing out there as far as stepping up and serving the community and doing things to give back and help others. I'm just so proud to be a part of a community that puts a priority on that. And, you know, the mission of Austin Gives goes back from when we first started, and it really is to give others a way to discover about giving and philanthropy and supporting our community and doing those good things. And we've had the awards program for the last several years, quite a few years. And again, it's an opportunity to recognize businesses for giving back and contributing in their philanthropic deeds. You know, we started Austin Gives several years back, and we found a model of it in Minneapolis called the Keystone Program. So, you know, we've had our origins from learning from others and developing that. And it really is about putting a spotlight on businesses doing good things in our community, not just during these unusual times, but just as importantly, all year round, year after year after year, and doing those stories. And I've always gotten so much out of this process about learning from other companies, the things they're doing, how they're giving back. And you touched it at the beginning. The other thing is I get inspired. I mean, hearing what people are doing, businesses are doing, how they're giving back, they're absolutely inspirational. So I'll say this, I'm really, really proud to be part of a community and part of the Greater Austin Chamber that recognizes how important it is to put that spotlight on businesses, to share these stories, and to really have a community that says, this is what's important to us. This is where we put a priority on. So always have been very proud that the Chamber has made this a priority, The business community has made it a priority, and we really do make a real positive impact back in our community. So excited to hear about the stories today, and looking forward to the presentations. And I know we'll all learn and be inspired from it. So thanks, Kristen, and we'll send it back to you now.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate that. You mentioned a couple key words there, community. And I think community is so important right now when things are pretty uncertain. And when things feel really uncertain to me, the one thing I know I can count on right now is that there's a lot of good. You know, we talk about people doing good, and that's what I have found really inspiring, is that our neighbors are doing so much good right now. And we've got some people on this panel today who are really leaders in that space. So it's my pleasure to introduce them. And I'm going to start with Leslie Lockett Sweet. And today is her 10th anniversary. And so happy anniversary, Leslie. You made time to be with us, so thank you. Leslie leads public affairs for HEB and has done so for 15 years. So I think on behalf of everybody, thanks to you, Leslie, for keeping us fed right now. In addition to that, Leslie is on boards across the community, from the food bank to the Zach Theater. And as I introduce each panelist, I want to give you a moment to tell us one thing that you've learned in your time in quarantine. What's a new skill that might surprise us? So Leslie, what have you been doing at home?
Well, I think like many of you, I've learned that my house has more creative workspaces than I ever imagined. So I can apparently make an office in a closet, in the attic, in my bedroom, in the kitchen. So we've had to get really creative between homeschooling and calls. You know, HEB, like many of you, have been working around the clock. So
Yeah.
I bounced around quite a bit, but also having to ask for more help than I've ever asked. And my 40 plus years on this earth is we had to get really creative, and I had to get very clear about how to get through the next hour many times. So thanks to my husband and our great HEB team and so many partners that came together in ways that we had never even known we needed each other before.
Isn't that the truth? Asking for help is so important. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. Our next panelist is Monica Maldonado Williams. Monica manages social impact and community engagement for UFCU. Formerly, she was the founder and publisher of Giving City Austin, which until very recently was an online news site that covered nonprofits. And she's the co-founder of The New Philanthropist, which is dedicated to increasing diversity on nonprofit boards. So Monica is definitely an expert and leader in this space. Thank you for being here, Monica.
Yeah.
What have you learned? What have you been doing?
I think I have secretly been harboring a pioneer woman. Like all of a sudden, I am growing vegetables. I am sewing. I might start canning pretty soon. I don't know if it's a mix of apocalyptic skills or just, frontier skills, but I think I'm ready. So I think I'm pretty talented in those things.
Have you been baking too?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
like everybody in Austin.
Yeah, I've been baking. We've been doing our own repairs, landscaping, you name it. It's very much like, it's an all hands on deck situation. My teenagers are involved too. They're cooking up, they're sewing masks, they're painting, they're doing all kinds of stuff. So we're a resourceful crew.
We're all more self-sufficient, I think, than we realize. But watch out on the landscaping, because we still need ABC home and clean, right, Bobby?
I might call y'all, actually. The backyard's a mess, for sure.
Okay, our next panelist is George Luke. George is the co-founder and CEO of Give Pulse, and that's a community engagement platform that organizes giving efforts. He's also an expert in this arena, speaks a lot on the topic. He speaks with South by Southwest, TEDx Austin. So George, thanks for being here. And have you learned anything new since you've been at home?
Yeah, I always thought that baking was a complete different science, but as long as you follow the directions and as long as you know where the hot spots are in the oven, you could create like some really, really delicious baked goods. So I've just been really spending a lot of my time making banana chocolate bread. And my secret to banana bread chocolate chip bread is the sour cream. It creates this richness to the banana bread. So yeah, I've just been just spending my time baking.
Okay. So the gyms are going to do really well after all this with all the baking we're doing, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so our final panelist, Jeremiah Bentley. Jeremiah is a senior leader with Texas Mutual Insurance Company, and that's the state's leading provider of workers' comp for anyone who doesn't know. And for anyone who doesn't know Jeremiah, he is also a leader across our community, an expert in this nonprofit space. Everything from United Way for Greater Austin to the Austin FC supporters group. Jeremiah, what have you been doing at home? What have you learned?
I mean, the number one thing I've learned is how much time I spend in the car, like driving to and from the things and how much productive that time can be. So it makes me very excited about the potential for transit in this area in the future. And then also the boys and I have really been rediscovering old school board games. So we've got Risk, we've got Life, we've got Monopoly. And my 8-year-old is really, really good at them. He's kind of a tyrant. We can't defeat him in Risk. So like the whole family has to gang up against him. So that's what we've learned.
Yeah, so we're all kind of getting back to old school pastimes. Well, thanks for sharing a bit of personal information. So for everyone who signed on today, thank you for making time. Here's what we've got planned for you today. First, the companies represented are going to share a little bit about what they've been doing for the community, and hopefully you'll get some inspiration. Maybe it'll spark some ideas for you. Then our panelists are going to share some of their favorite examples from other companies. And throughout, we'll take your questions. So please use the chat function, send your questions in. I'll be moderating those and sending them out to our panelists. So I hope you enjoy it. And so let's get started. Bobby, what has ABC been doing? I know you're always helping out this community, but in particular over these last few months. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Kristen, right now for us, there's a lot of opportunities for us to donate services specifically. And so we're being very active in that as far as, if we can do some serve those who serve others, that kind of concept. So we're doing that. The other thing that we're rolling out right now is when we sell a service, and we're very blessed, first of all, to be an essential service. So while business isn't what it would normally be, we're hanging in there, so to speak. And so we decided as a team, since we are so fortunate to be working, how do we make sure that we share that with as many as we can? And so we're rolling out a program where for every service we sell, we're going to donate $10. And we've chosen the Central Texas Food Bank to be the recipient of that. And my thought on that, this is something that will go on for quite some time, because even if we get a hold of the health component of the pandemic, what I'm very concerned is, of course, is the economic impact for so many people is going to be extended for a while. And so in each of the markets that we are operating in, there's a food bank there. And so we'll be contributing in that way. I think it's just going to be one of the big needs. It's going to be there today and grow and be there for quite some time.
Yeah, I think so. I love that idea of donating for every service you sell. And I know your folks are busy. I see them in my neighborhood. So thank you.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Monica, what about UFCU? What have y'all been doing? I know you've got a lot of members, customers.
We do. We have a lot of members. We are also an essential service. So of course our doors have been open this whole time. I think we've had to really be creative. I want to share a little bit about the background of what's going on in the nonprofit community. Many of you may have heard early on some anecdotes and some data as a response to a survey, and I've got some notes here. I'm looking at another screen, so forgive me, but just to refresh our memory as to the status of our social sector. In early March, Mission Capital led about a dozen other organizations in a survey of 500 nonprofits. So this is up through April. In that survey, those 500 respondents, here's some data that was really telling to us. 65% of those canceled their fundraising events. 57% saw a reduction in their fee for service or earned revenue. 55% saw a reduction in donations, and 21% saw a reduction in grant funding. At the same time all that was happening, almost half of them saw an increase in the demand for their services, as well as services they never provided before. And so we knew that they were in a really dire situation. We also knew that one of the things they needed immediately was cash. Jeremiah is going to talk about how to respond to that and best practices to respond to that. But I think the key was not just cash, but unrestricted cash, and then unrestricting cash that you had granted to them for other programs. So UFCU, one of the first things we did was really comb through our budget and try to identify, trim and redirect some of the money that we had planned to go to the projects and programs that we planned for in 2019 to see how we could help our existing partners with basic needs and immediate emergency needs as much as possible. A lot of that went to basic needs, and a lot of that went to student emergency funds. University Federal Credit Union is our DNA, and the education, our education partners are really important to us in this region, and their students were in trouble. And so we identified a number of ways to direct cash to those student emergency funds on campus and through our partner E3 Alliance and their ACAN organization, which helps a lot of Austin students access and attain college degrees. Another thing that was important to our strategy pretty early on, I mentioned that we are an essential service. We are also a nonprofit, and we are also a member-owned cooperative financial institution. So a lot of our services to the community, like a lot of you, were essential, and they came through in our products and services to members. There's tons of data out there for how credit unions are being, and financial institutions are being really responsive to help people maintain their financial health. And so that includes for us saving over 3,000 jobs with small business and PPP loans. That includes saving people's homes, giving people through credit extensions and loans and forbearance some wiggle room financially to survive this time. We saw a lot of our members moving from categories where they were coping into where they were struggling. And so with financial health as our mission, we continue to focus on the focus areas. We focus on our education, employment, and housing. But right now, financial health looks a little differently. And what we discovered from surveying nonprofits and just reading the news and talking to our colleagues was that basic needs and emergency services were really important too. So then it came to, as a nonprofit, we don't have the capacity to give on the scale of some of the other companies in town. But we do have a workforce of employees who can give and are devoted to our relationships in the community. And they were ready to go out and volunteer. At the same time, volunteer opportunities were shutting down. They really rely on person-to-person contact. So finding opportunities to get our employees out into the community and be of service was really challenging. And we started by calling a lot of nonprofits and asking them, what can we do? And they really didn't know at that moment what they could do. So we relied on a kind of a three-part strategy where we could be responsive, resourceful, and continue to stick to our mission. With the mission of financial health, knowing that financial health expanded to include basic needs like food and emergency services. If you had asked me last year if I joined UFCU, when I joined UFCU, if our employees would be creating and distributing personal protective equipment, I probably would have not known what you were talking about. But by being resourceful and responsive and sticking to our mission, we have done things like enabled a couple dozen of our employees to whip out their sewing machines and make about 300 masks at this point. In addition to their day jobs, so at night and the weekends, they're churning them out. And we've provided those to our frontline employees who are still in the branches, all other credit union employees, as well as our partners, the families and the staff who need these masks as well. We've delivered hand sanitizers, about 15 gallons of hand sanitizers to some of our partners. We've volunteered at the food bank sorting food and distributed food through Meals on Wheels and the food bank. We have done things like allowed our employees to create videos for Dress for Success, who's creating a video bank now for their clients, write greeting cards and put in gift cards to some of our nonprofit clients. So we've really tried to think through all the ways that we could be of service to our existing nonprofit partners, to our members who are being impacted by this crisis. And I think what's really important is our leadership message to us has been so supportive. And I really can't stress enough how much Tony Bidette and Heather McKissick and our leaders have really directed all of our efforts. what they've noted to us and what's important for all of us to know is that this is a remarkable time in our company's history. You know, in our 84 years as a credit union here, we've never experienced anything like this. And I think that's true for all of us right now. And it's an opportunity. And, you know, we struggle with thinking through the long-term strategy with so many unknowns, but I think we're trying to stick to those resourcefulness and rethinking our responsiveness and our mission, and really just trying to do the next right thing every time.
Thank you, Monica. I heard a couple key things there. You mentioned mission a few times, and I think that's smart to give back, to meet the need, but make sure it still aligns with the company's mission. So it can be easy to get pulled in a million different directions.
Yeah, we want to stick to our expertise, right? We want to stick to what we know. There's plenty to do within our mission. There's plenty. So right now, that's the best strategy for us, is to really think through what we know how to do and rely on that.
Yeah, it's better to be effective that way. And some great creative ideas there.
Mm-hmm.
I like the video idea, making cards. People want to be able to help. So I love some of those thoughts. I do want to say that I think ABC Home and Commercial is doing someone's yard right behind me. So if you hear that, I apologize. Let's turn it over to Jeremiah. I know Texas Mutual always does a lot. You've been doing a whole lot now. You give a lot of grants in this community. Can you talk to us, Jeremiah, about what y'all have been doing these last few months?
Yeah, thanks. And I really want to build on what Monica said, because like for us too, it comes back to our mission. And we've been here to build a stronger, safer Texas for everyone since we were founded. But like what a stronger, safer Texas meant in February and what a stronger, safer Texas means right now are two very different things. But the fact that we could go back and look at that and, you know, and really align around doing that and what we do and, you know, what our space is has really been important. So, you know, for us, first of all, and Monica touched on this, and I would like to think this is an original idea, but we got this from the very first webinar that we went to like this, where we learned. And so I love these types of chances for people to connect and learn from each other and share ideas. And the first one we did was one from a bunch of foundations in Dallas back in the middle of March, back when this first really started breaking. And they talked about unrestricting funding. You know, we got a lot of grant partners that we've really invested heavily in workforce development work, and that's important. But you know, they need to keep the lights on. They need to pay staff, and they need to meet basic needs. And so, like, what the definition of workforce development is very different now than it was before. So that was what we did. The very first thing was started calling up folks that we already had existing grants with, and tell them, you know, use it. You know, we'll figure it out afterwards. You know, right? Like, there's going to be reports and whatever, but you know, use it for whatever you need it now, and then also, as much as possible, renew that commitment to being there to support them down the road too. Because as Monica said, this is a really busy time and people's funding sources are strapped. So as much as we could give people a little bit of security around knowing that Texas Mutual is going to be there to support them down the road, we just thought that was an important thing for us to do. And then we really started looking at, you know, again, at immediate needs, because it's an unprecedented time. And so we don't do a lot of food bank work or Meals on Wheels or, you know, any of these community health clinics or any of this emergency response stuff usually, because this doesn't really align with a workers' comp insurance company. But I mean, with the world now, like, that's what people needed, and that's what people needed to be able to step in and do. And so we did about $2 million in grants statewide to those types of entities, which we just finally got all the checks out recently. So it's just the important to sort of respond to the times and like know you have a plan and a strategy and a master plan, and it's all rooted in your mission, but you need to be able to pivot and sort of respond to what's going on now is super important. And then the other thing, because we're a mutual company and we're owned by our policyholders, we really wanted to make sure to do everything that we could to support them too. And so we do a dividend payout every year depending upon our financial results, and we committed to keeping it the same as last year, which was the biggest dividend we'd ever paid out. And then we also paid it out 2 months early, because we knew it was really important for the small businesses in the state of Texas to have that money in their hands. And the benefit of the way we work and the way we're aligned is we can look at both, like, how do we take care of our policyholders specifically, how do we take care of the state as a whole, and really look at how we support everyone. And so we were happy to be able to do that. And then, you know, just little ideas are also good too. So we're on Aldrich Street. There's a lot of local restaurants that are struggling right there. We had a regular Ronald McDonald House a regular Ronald McDonald House cook that we would do. And, you know, we didn't want to do that anymore because of the risk to our employees. So we started having lunch delivered from those local restaurants to Ronald McDonald House. So it's a chance to be a good neighbor to people that support us and, help them in some little way, and then also continue to support the community.
Some really great ideas there. I especially love the collaboration, supporting the small businesses that then in turn support the Ronald McDonald House. That's a really cool idea. Leslie, talk to us about HEB. We only have a certain amount of time. I think we could be here all day talking about all that HEB has done. So what are some of your favorite things?
Well, frankly, this was a really humbling time for us in early March. We've seen unprecedented demand on HEB, and though we had started preparing in January for this, there was no way to prepare for the lines and the massive crush on our business. And so it was a first for me in my 15 years with HEB that we didn't have inventory to share with our community partners. HEB prides itself on being there for customers during times of disaster. We have 17 disaster vehicles gassed up and ready to go, and we didn't have the inventory to put in the trucks to send our mobile kitchens out that serve 50,000 meals along the coastline to communities hit in Hurricane Harvey. We sent 450 truckloads of product to community members over Hurricane Harvey. And with COVID, we were worried about keeping our stores stocked. And, as we all do, we need to have infant formula on the shelves for new moms. We need to have diapers. We need to have pharmaceuticals. So we really had to get creative and realize the true strength of our community partners, the Food Bank, AISD, so many great organizations that jumped into action. And we pivoted, instead of HEB being a direct food distribution point during times of crisis that we historically have been, we had to lean into the strength of our community partners and really fuel and fund them to do the good work that they were poised and ready to do. So here's a photo of us. We first focused, we were very concerned, as everybody was, about our elderly and our immunocompromised. So Felicia on our team came up with the great idea of partnering with Cap Metro, that already has our Metro Access program that serves our vulnerable seniors at their home. So we partnered with the Food Bank, Metro Access, with Cap Metro, and we provided the funding and helped deliver through the existing routes of Cap Metro boxes of food for our elderly, so we could make sure they were being well fed, well cared for, do a well check, and keep them out of public places, especially if they're immunocompromised. So great work by Cap Metro and of course the Food Bank. So the next photo is an example of another organization that really was first to market with opening up food locations, and that's AISD with their 14 feeding sites that they launched. I think maybe within 24 hours, AISD had feeding locations up when they closed schools to make sure our kiddos that are on the free and reduced lunch program had awesome meals, and we were able to come in with $100,000 in fund meals for the caregivers too. This has been a disruption for everybody, so we wanted not just the kiddo to get fed as the parents drove through the line, but also make sure those kiddos and grandmas got a great meal from AISD. And I'm so impressed with the way AISD quickly reorganized and found some really creative ways to serve the community. So just another really powerful partnership. Again, we didn't have the food to give AISD, but they already had their food service workers. We were able, thankfully, with HEB's commitment, we made a commitment to fund $3 million within the first 2 months of COVID care. So we were able to distribute the funds to make sure they could pull it together and do it in fast action. So super impressed with them. The next photo, I think, is a demonstration of how we mobilized our business. Or excuse me, this is a story, all of our vendors at HEB. So you ever heard we give money to local producers in Texas, people cooking salsa, homemade spaghetti sauce out of their kitchens, and they have a great product, and we have a competition where they can win some cold hard cash to invest in their business and get place on our shelves. And so our vendors started calling us, these great homemade companies in Texas, saying, I want to donate, I want to be a part of it. And so they had some extra food to share. And so this is Smoky Denmark's, we had Afia Foods, so many awesome vendors, Loving Libby, So many of our HEB vendors understand our culture and work with us because we're like-minded in that way, and started showing up in some amazing ways, donating to the food bank, donating to us, which was surprising for us. So some of our vendors started showing up, like Loving Libby has been feeding one of our stores with 400 breakfast tacos every morning because she wanted to take care of us and has grown to love us as we sell her products. So just really cool partnering that when we couldn't give the food, other people stepped up and said, you know, I can. So neat stories there. And then the next photo, I think, talks about how we launched a senior support program to give, we paid the cost for home delivery for seniors to be able to order through Favor. That's HEB purchased Favor about a year and a half ago, and they wanted to help out, and we were still struggling with trying to keep seniors that wanted to stay home with immunocompromised concerns out of our stores. And so Favor quickly spun up a beautiful web app and phone line to take seniors' orders, and HEB and Favor split the costs of the processing delivery fees, and the senior only pays $10, which goes 100% to the runner to shop and drive the groceries to them. And so we've, in just a short month and a half that we've had this program, we've delivered over 250,000 free orders to seniors, and they pay that $10 tip, which also gives runners who are largely our hospitality industry looking for a job, it gives them the opportunity to make some money as they're delivering to those seniors. So that's been a really cool innovation that we never thought we would do, but that's been working really well for us and giving our seniors the opportunity to stay at home if they didn't have family that could care for them and get their groceries. And then, like many great groups, we stepped in to help our healthcare workers. So we've donated over 80,000 ready to heat and eat meals to our hospitals to make sure that they know we care, we all do, and I'm just overwhelmed. Everybody did a great job with Nurses Week this week, and they certainly deserve it. And we are one of thousands of companies and individuals showing up to take care of our healthcare workers. So it's been awesome to see everybody jump in and lift, show that support there. And then we launched, and we're still worried about our restaurants. And so we launched a program called Texans, helping Texans, to encourage everybody to step in and help, and also support our local restaurants. So we are now allowing a select group of restaurants to sell their products at no cost to us at HEB. So we have several great Austin restaurants selling their products in our stores as their restaurants were closed, like Tatsuya, Picnic, and Fresas. And we just passed the 1 million sales mark for these restaurants last week. So just another creative way to partner together with these amazing restaurants and restaurateurs Texas has to keep them employed, keep their staffs employed, and give them a retail outlet to sell their food and keep their boats going so we don't lose them as we come out of this. So Kristen, as you said, I could go on. I think that's probably enough. But the real story is, it's just a humbling time for HEB to not be able to do it all ourselves. Like, honestly, we love to do, our employees love to get out and do disaster work and really hug and hold and provide the resources that we normally do directly to communities. And we just didn't have the ability. So we had to pivot, get creative, and man our community partners strong and competent and world-class in the work they do. And we're so grateful for all of them for stepping up to take care of the families that needed it in Austin.
Well, we're grateful for HEB. Y'all are world-class. And I think the difference here is, you mentioned Harvey. We can all come in and help one area when it's something like Harvey. And I talked to another company that said this is totally different because the disaster is everywhere. You can't just mobilize around one community when we all need help. But I think we're all doing the best we can, and following HEB's lead certainly helps us all. Let's hear from you, George. Talk to us about Give Pulse. What have y'all been doing? How many employees do you have? Because we can't all be HEB or Texas Mutual, a big company. So I'm interested in hearing what your company's been doing in the community.
Local-based Austin company, and we're relatively small, so we have about 20 individuals in our team. And I think one of the things that for a small, medium-sized business is to try to stay relevant and look at your strengths. So there's that all 20 of us, 20 plus of us, we all care about the community. So majority of us have either volunteered remotely or virtually. I know that Caitlin, one of our community success managers, has done remote reading to kids. I know that Erica, one of our product managers, has done account management. So like in terms of account management, like talking to a nonprofit, helping them with their taxes. So all of us, even though as small as we are trying to do as much as we can. But from a business standpoint, we have to align like what our strengths are to be responsive and provide as much resources to all of our clients. So we operate outside of Austin. So nationally, we have hundreds of thousands of different various groups that we support. And that is a mixture of businesses, universities, and nonprofits. And one of the things that we identified early on is majority of the nonprofits that are leveraging our system to either manage their giving program or coordinate their volunteer opportunities, they have no idea what to do to transition to this time. Majority of them, as Monica said early on, they were face-to-face. Majority of the volunteer activities require somebody to walk into a store or walk into a center and interact with people. And it's a shock to the system, the fact that you can't do that now. So majority of us have been creating resources and training our nonprofits on how to move over to the virtual remote side of it. And what's also crazy is there's a big digital divide. Even though we can move over to the virtual side of things, majority of our community and majority of our nonprofits don't have the technology capacity to actually support this work. So it's just been really eye-revealing in the fact that there's a lot of need. There's a lot of requirement we have to fill, and I think businesses are in a position where we have the opportunity to step up and be the relief and be the solution for our community. And I think this is just one of those really critical times where the majority of the businesses aren't necessarily thinking about profit; they're shifting towards purpose, and it's definitely been eye-opening for even a small business like us, where even though we do technology for giving efforts, we have to do more to help support our community to stay relevant. And on top of that, I think some of the other things that we've been working on, which is relevant to not only this group here, but also relevant for the nation, is there's this need for volunteers for contact tracing. So we've been coordinating, working with the UT Health, Austin and Dell Center, as well as the city and also the Texas Department of Health, to actually drive people to identify licensed medical professionals that could help with contact tracing. There's going to be a large interest soon, hopefully sooner than later in Texas, to identify more individuals. So I encourage anyone to go to GivePulse or go to Texas Department of Health to enlist yourself as a potential contact tracer, because this is going to be more and more important as we have more testing. We also have to contact trace. So what are all of the elements that we can do to help the state as well as the nation come out of this stronger than ever? So hopefully that helps in terms of sharing some of the things that we're working on to stay relevant in these crazy times.
Really great perspective, and I can appreciate that. You know, my company, Elizabeth Christian PR, same as you, about 20 employees. We've been around for 25 years, but we've never seen anything like this. And, you know, we certainly can't do some of the things that some of the larger companies can do, but we've got skills to offer, doing all we can for our nonprofit partners, going well above and beyond for our clients to help them stay in business, some of them. So I think just using the skills you have at hand is important. I want to make sure we're sensitive to time. We've only got about 20 minutes left. So if we could just, Monica, Jeremiah, and Leslie, I know you were looking at some of the great examples from our Austin Gibbs members, some of the other things going on in this community. If I could have each of you just give maybe 1, 2 of those examples that really touched you. Monica, what did you see? Oh, if you could unmute, Monica.
I can unmute. Does that
Thank
help?
you. Yeah, perfect.
We only had about 35 responsive. You know, I know in the Corporate Engagement Council, there's about 90 organizations in that. Everyone's doing something, and it's really great to see. The list that I was given, what I saw a lot was a lot like what we're doing, shifting what you're doing in your manufacturing to making hand sanitizers and making masks. There's a lot of organizations that are realizing we have the materials to do that, so we can do that, so why shouldn't we do that? And I think that's being really resourceful and responsive. I also have to give a shout out to my friends at JHL, who've been really thinking, what is our strength and what can we do now to help those nonprofits that 65% of them had to cancel their events. And JHL has a lot of expertise in fundraising through events and alternative events. They also are organizing some meal deliveries and just really figuring out what they can do to be resourceful. I also have seen a number of these organizations do a lot of kind of pay it forward. I know you can feel kind of helpless if you are not a direct response organization, if you're not essential, and maybe you've got to keep business going over here, but you really want to help. And I'm seeing a lot of them connecting what they do to be in service to the crisis. And so, for example, keep making sure that as many of your employees can stay home as possible. You know, that is a critical thing. And if you can do that as an employer, that's wonderful. And I applaud those who are taking advantage of that opportunity. I see a lot of them also just rising to the challenge of participating in some of these online and virtual fundraising events by forming teams for Boys and Girls Club, by participating in virtual runs. You know, that's hard because you miss out on a lot of the camaraderie and the team building and the interaction face-to-face that you have, but you know deep in your heart that the real reason those things exist is to raise money for that nonprofit. So they are continuing to enlist their employees in these virtual fundraising events, which is so awesome, and I applaud that.
Yeah, those are great examples. It's easy to get lost in why we're going to these nonprofit events. Sometimes you see your friends, you have a good meal, but the reason we're all there is to raise money for these nonprofits, and we can still do that from home.
Right, and they're pretty fun. I mean, I've been on a couple of auctions where you're bidding on the phone and you get the alert and you lose the item. I mean, it still can be a pretty engaging thing, and we'll get back to those gala dresses. We'll have to let them out a little bit maybe next time we go. But we'll get back to that soon enough. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with online fundraising right now.
Yeah, I agree. Jeremiah, what about you? What have you seen that's inspiring?
Well, I think one thing I wanted to add to, you know, on the events and I don't think we've talked about it on this call, but the reason it's extra hard is that's where a lot of the flexible funding that nonprofits get, you know, to support their operations and all that other stuff comes from, because so many of their grant dollars have been restricted. And so, you know, that's where it's really important to be able to step up for them. A lot of the things I've seen are, you know, a lot of the similar, you know, flexibility in funding. I think one thing that's really important out of this too, that I see folks doing is it's new funding, right? Because, you know, it's one thing to keep giving the money to the people that you always do, you know, and that's shifting that donation is certainly helpful, and making flexibility around that is helpful. But, you know, the more that those of us that have the ability to give and contribute can give on top of what we're already doing specifically to this response, so it doesn't take away from the long-term mission of the organization. Because, you know, a lot of our partners have been here for a long time, and they're going to be here for a long time, and they're going to be here for the next challenge. And so, you know, we can't bankrupt them, you know, in just immediately responding to what's going on now. And I think a neat idea that I see here from especially from National Instruments is we've talked a lot about the technology divide. And, you know, it's just they took a bunch of laptops that were going to go be recycled and send them to AISD, and also collected from employees. So if you think about, you know, the electronics and the other things you have around that maybe aren't valuable to you, you can use that to help others. And so everybody's got, you know, either in their personal life or their company, old stuff laying around that's not that useful to you that could be useful to someone else. I think it's a great idea that we can all apply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. What about you, Leslie? Did you see anything interesting?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, over, you know, dozens of amazing, innovative responses from companies. A few that really struck my eye that I thought were super creative was Silicon Labs participating in the I Eat Local program, and
that was great.
They invested $15 per employee in their paycheck and asked all of their 1,500 employees to buy a takeout meal from a restaurant. So again, I mean, what a cool response, as we all are super proud of our culinary scene in Austin, and we all need to come together and not just cook at home, but think about all those restaurants that need that revenue to keep coming through to pay their rent and everything else. So I thought that was really creative and a great way to use your employees for good. And then another one that surprised me that I haven't heard on national news was using dormitories to take care of first responders and healthcare workers that are on the front lines, going to be heavily exposed and need a safe place to stay. And Concordia University opened up their dorms and offered those up. And I thought that was beautiful. And I was just surprised I hadn't heard that in New York. I had heard hotels doing that great work, but hadn't heard a university offering up their dorms. So again, super creative, innovative, and a great way for businesses, as Monica said, that aren't normally on the front line of disaster response, but finding a really creative game to get in the game, get on the team and do some heavy lifting.
Yeah. I thought that was a really great example from Concordia. They're always such a giving, community thinking organization. So it's such a good fit for them. And I know there are a lot of frontline workers who appreciated that. We've got a great question here from Joel Rice with the American Heart Association, great nonprofit in our town. He's asking for advice for nonprofits that are trying to solicit funds from corporate partners to approach. He wants to approach the conversation without seeming tone deaf. He realizes that companies are struggling right now. So does anybody have any advice for nonprofits right now that are looking to still fundraise? They've still got to make payroll. Jeremiah, advice? I know you work with the Heart Association.
Yeah. Is this like Joel wanting me to recommit to the check right now in front of the audience? Is that what?
Not for the Heart Association particularly. For any.
Okay. Yeah, I think I think pretty soon as we sort of get past this like immediate response part of it, I mean, we all need to appreciate as funders that there are a lot of things that a lot of nonprofits do that are valuable, right? And okay, we'll use heart as an example, right? Like heart disease is still a major factor in, and I think it's probably maybe be worse now because people are like avoiding treatment and avoiding the emergency room. So hopefully people appreciate health. The arts are probably taking a giant hit right now, right? But it's like important to have like a meaningful and full society and community to have those kinds of things. So, I think that the time will come soon where we've sort of been the nonprofits that need to raise money have been respectful enough and sat back enough, and they can really. I mean, they're all doing important work, and they didn't go away just because of what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would like to add that it is really hard to ask. I know that when we've been, we've had some commitments that we had to rethink this year. And I don't envy the nonprofits that have to go out and continue to fundraise in this time if they're not directly providing services to people impacted by the COVID. I will say as a communications director and a former communications director of nonprofits, there's a lot of messages you can communicate right now. Maybe this month is not the time to make the ask, but maybe now is the time to continue to share your support for other organizations, tell your story, make sure that the funders know your story, know your data, know you're still here, know you're still being relevant, know that the community can count on you. That's really that really makes me feel good that they're going to be there. Heart Association, the arts, some of these other environmental organizations, that they can continue. And keeping in touch with us is still a really important part of getting funding later. So keeping in touch with us, and when things get more sane, I think they're going to be the first people we reach out to.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned communication, and we got a question here from one of my favorite communicators, David Wyatt, who's one of my colleagues. And he asked, is it important to communicate about the philanthropic work your company is doing in the community right now, whether it's to your workforce or to your customers, or is it better to be, quiet about that? What's your preference and why?
This is Leslie. I think part of why we have such great retention across HEB and have employees regularly with 30 years, 40 years of service, is we do talk about our philanthropy, and we largely do it because it's amazing to go to work for a higher calling than just getting paid today. And we find amazing benefits to really engaging the whole person at work, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. I mean, when you bring everything of the best of what someone has to offer on your team, you're going to get far more than if you just say, show up, do what we asked you to do, and go home. I mean, you're missing out on the giftedness of these beautiful individuals at all of our companies that show up, that have far more talent unseen than what we're asking them to do. And I feel like philanthropy really allows people to express their giftedness in ways that the company hasn't even seen yet. And that's where we see customer service examples that we wouldn't even dream of how to offer customer service of an employee noticing that a mom's crying as she leaves the store. They grab flowers, chase her out, find out she's in the middle of chemo. And that mom will shop with us for the rest of her life. And we don't even know how to train that, but we do know how to invite people to bring their best heart, their best self to come to work every day.
Beautifully said. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just at a conference related to corporate philanthropy and social responsibility, and they mentioned a really good PDF that pretty much summarizes the sentiment that consumers are looking for. And majority of them are pretty much thinking that any business that is compassionate during these times will pretty much thrive. And I forget what the exact statistic was, but it came from Porter Novelli, which does a lot of research and communication for a lot of big businesses. And I think it was like around 70% of people that were surveyed believe that a company's reputation remains on the line based on what they do during this time, right? And it's pretty revealing, the fact that I think from the leadership to the brand to the business, in an ideal world, obviously, it just comes innate. It's just part of the culture. But I also think that, like, and when time gets rough, like, based on what you do, it shows like what you truly are, right? So I think it's just really interesting time for sure.
I couldn't agree
I'm happy
more.
to find that PDF and share that too as well. But
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's times like this that shows what a company is made of. And I think it starts at the top. I think it says a lot that we've got the owner, Bobby Jenkins here of this company. I know the owners of our other companies. I mean, you're the owner of your company, George. And I know Leslie, Jeremiah, Monica, you've all mentioned your leadership, and they all fully believe in philanthropy and they walk the walk every day. I think that's really important.
Yep.
We've had a question come in. Is there a place businesses can go to find examples of creative giving? And I'm so glad you asked that, Joel Kaufman, because we're going to have a list of resources for best practices, volunteer opportunities on the Austin Gibbs website after this. So I invite everybody after this webinar concludes to go to the Austin Gibbs website. You can get some great ideas there. This webinar is going to live there as well. We've only got a few minutes left. Before we wrap up, George, your specialty is helping people structure giving programs. If someone has been inspired, they don't have a really well thought out program, do you have any specific tips for them? How might they get started?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it also depends on the capacity side of it, right? If you feel excited and you want to do something, obviously feel free to find virtual and remote opportunities, right? That's definitely step one. Eat your own dog food. That might be a tech term. I'm not sure if it actually exists for all businesses, but it's part of it is if you believe that you can make a difference, you should totally do it. But if you feel like you have the capacity to implement something for your business, there are a couple of different key points I want to probably mention. I think the biggest thing is it has to come from the leadership. So from many instances, when we work with a lot of different various businesses and nonprofits, a lot of it just has to come from the leadership. They believe in it, the management, the middle management, everyone else will believe on it. So that also ultimately leads to some type of sustained buy-in that allows employees to the leadership to do this work, right? So really to summarize that one key point, it's creating a culture push within the company. The other thing, there's a lot of different community needs. There's a lot of nonprofits on the food bank side of it that need your help. There's a lot of different various organizations. We just kind of identified one, the Heart Association. They're struggling too because majority of the finances are all focused toward corona relief efforts. So how do we identify, at least as of right now, as a business, how can we identify our strengths to align to the causes that we feel like can make a big difference, right? So sometimes it's all about identifying what your employees care about, right? So doing some type of needs assessment, or maybe even running a survey, asking your employees, hey, employees, which kind of causes do you want to work with? Sometimes it's also, well, if our strength is like what Bob says, we work with certain lawns, where we mow the lawn, well, there's certain organizations that would actually really require that, right? Probably not the best example, but I think this is also a plug for ABC, right? But I think part of it is, how do you identify your strengths, and does your strength fill that gap for the community? HEB is a great example. They have an amazing supply chain to provide food. So they probably have an amazing relationship with Food Bank. They probably have an amazing relationship with Keep Us Fed. How do you identify your strengths, and how do you make that strength help fill that gap? And then last and probably the most important piece is, there's a lot of these basic functionalities that any organization, business should have. If you have the capacity to provide grants, create a grant making program. If you have the capacity to match donations with your volunteer hours, great. If you have volunteer time off policy, or if you don't have volunteer time off policy, you should implement it. I think this is the perfect opportunity, especially when we are at home and we're away from the noise, away from the office, where we could actually reflect and think about all the things that we can do, from encouraging people to just give back, to creating the infrastructure to really scale after we get out of this. So within that, I just want to keep it short too as well, because there's a lot of details, and maybe we could open up to questions too.
Some great tips. I think, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I think we could go all day. Thanks to you, George. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Leslie, Jeremiah, Bobby. You opened us up. Anything you'd like to say to close us before I end with a few housekeeping items?
You know, Kristen, this was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I can tell you, I have been sitting here this whole time. I've got a page full of notes, of ideas, of things that have really touched me and inspired me. And so to the panel and to everybody, I just want to say how much I appreciate it. But there's just great ideas here. There's so much work that needs to be done. I think that was mentioned in the comments. There's a lot of need. I love the idea of businesses moving from profit-focused to purpose-focused. I think that's what will sustain the day. And so this was everything that I was hoping it would be, or I think that we all hoped it would be. Lots of learning. I'm inspired. And so thank you to everybody for sharing.
Thank you, Bobby. You mentioned purpose focus. I heard a few P words. Pivoting is so important right now. Partnerships, very important. And pride. I just feel so much pride in our community. Everybody is stepping up. I start off by talking about goodness. I mean, so much goodness just right here. So thank you all. Thank you again to the Chamber, to the Chamber partners for making this possible. This wouldn't be possible without you. If you are an attendee of this webinar today and you aren't a Chamber member, I encourage you to look into it. Lots of resources like this for you and your business. And log on to this website that you're seeing on the screen for ideas and volunteer opportunities after. And enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, stay safe, help each other, and stay engaged with Austin Gibbs. Thanks, everybody.